today I'm going to try something a little bit different for my blog post. I'm going to do a drawing, and I have already sort of sketched out what I want it to look like here. I'm going to be sort of going over it so you can see how I actually draw it and color it in and everything. But I'm going to talk a little bit about creativity while I'm doing that, because over the past couple years I've been drawing so much, and I honestly think it's had such a positive impact on my life. And I think the more I do it, the more I want other people to do it. Even though so many people think, oh, I'm not creative, or I'm not good at drawing, or I don't like it. I just think you can learn so much about yourself and about the world just from doing it. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today while I'm doing this drawing. I do have my dog Barkley here, so hopefully she's good, but if she's not, then we'll deal with that. She's scratching on the couch already. So when it comes to creativity, I think there are, Barkley, please don't. I think there are a lot of things that we can learn about ourselves and about the world. So one of the best things I think creativity has to offer is reconnecting us with our imaginations, because as adults we often don't do that unless you're in like a really creative job. So I think that it's really important to reconnect with our imagination, because we have a lot of thoughts and patterns that we just kind of go with because that's the way we do things, or that's the way we think, become kind of embedded in our lives. And imagination can help us, if not break those patterns or thought habits, because some of them aren't bad, but they can at least help us be aware of them and, consider whether or not we want to change things or should. I mean, the first step to making any change is to be aware that you might want to make a change, and it becomes a lot easier to do that when we connect with our imaginations. There's just so many more possibilities, and I've found that being creative and doing creative things really helps with that. And I'm going to be talking, I don't know if I already said this because I recorded another one before and then restarted, but I'm going to be talking primarily about drawing because that's what I spend my time doing, but I really think creativity does not need to be limited to drawing. Could be painting, sculpting, writing, maybe even cooking. I don't do that, so I don't really know, but I assume that it probably allows you to use your imagination. A lot of us, kind of when it comes to imagination, tend to be kind of afraid of it, because sometimes it can be weird. So I think one thing that being creative, especially in like just doing some doodles or drawing, it helps us to connect with our imagination in some sort of fresh ways without having to be too afraid of it. Another thing with the imagination thing is that you will be so surprised with the stuff that you can come up with, especially if you practice a lot. Because I always get comments of people saying things like, "Oh my gosh, you're so creative," or like, "How did you come up with that idea?" And honestly, it's not this like special, innate, magical thing. It really has a lot to do with how much time you spend with your imagination, or allowing your imagination to kind of do its thing. And it's kind of one of those things that it's annoying to hear, but it really is like, if you want to be creative and you want to have a lot of good ideas, you have to make time for them. Like anything, it really just takes time and practice. And yeah, I think there's like some level of, people are more creative than others, or maybe they are born with, I don't know, more artistic in their blood or something, but I honestly think more of it has to do with just dedicating the time to doing it, um, and sort of exploring different things. Also, and this can sound kind of weird if you're not in the art world or making art. I'm gonna start a new layer here. Sometimes everything should probably be on its own layer, but whatever, because I've already sketched it out. And let me know in the comments if you would like to hear more about like the actual drawing process. I'll put in the description like what I'm using here in terms of tools, but it's hard for me to know because I don't, like, my brand Positively Present isn't about drawing, but I do so much of it now, and I feel like I have so many people that have found me now because of my art that I don't know if more people would actually be interested in hearing some of the art stuff. I don't know, sometimes I think that stuff's interesting even if you're not actually doing it yourself, but the goal of this video is to hopefully inspire you to want to do it. So anyway, let me know in the comments below if you want like more, like what are you doing in each step here versus just talking and chatting. So anyway, what I was getting at was the part about imagination and how it sounds weird if you're not doing art, but it really kind of just comes to you. Like, it's hard to explain. And in the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, she kind of does a good job of explaining it, and I'm sure that there are others who have done the same, but I hate to use the word muse because it's like, I don't know, just like not my kind of thing. Like, I'm not into that. I don't know. Something about it, like, I have this prejudgment of that word for some reason. But the point is, like, there's just, it's almost like, sounds so weird, but somebody's like whispering it to you, or like, it just like comes to you, like, why don't you make this? Like a drawing I did recently about like apps I wish that I had on my phone. Like, it just came out of nowhere. And like, obviously, I'm sure anybody who studies the brain or knows, you know, about what's actually going on in your brain knows like it's probably a culmination of like different things you've seen, or, you know, something that all comes together in your mind, but it feels like magic. Like all of a sudden somebody's like, what about this idea? And you probably had that too, maybe just like a random idea. You're like, what the heck? Where did that come from? It's kind of like that. So first of all, that's really cool when it happens, but I think part of the reason why people think, oh, I'm not creative, or oh, I'm not this or that, is because I think a lot of people aren't listening. Oops, aren't listening to that voice. It's like a quiet thing, and I think it gets louder if you listen to it. It's kind of like, I think of it as somebody who's like shy or something. Like, when you first meet them, they probably don't say a lot, and like, oh, that person like has nothing to say or something. But if you get to know them more and they open up more and more, then all of a sudden you find out they're really talkative and they have all these great ideas or whatever. It's kind of like that, whatever this like voice is inside. And so at first, like, you might think, well, I don't have any good ideas, or I'm not creative, or I can't do that. Um, but part of it is really just the listening and giving it your attention. And that's why I think for me, like setting aside time to do art every day, which I don't even do like on purpose. It's because I want to do it. But I do think there's something to be said for actually like setting aside time to do that and to access that part of your imagination, because otherwise you won't be able to necessarily hear it, because it is a quiet thing. So I'm just checking out my notes here because I wrote some here. Oh yes, this is probably the biggest point that I'm going to talk about is open-mindedness. It is my current favorite topic. I just did a presentation on it recently, and it was a really great topic for me to research because honestly, I think it's one of the most important topics, and especially I think so right now in our current political and social climate. I think there are so many different perspectives and stuff, and it's so important to have an open mind and be willing to hear what other people have to say who might not think the same way you do. And I really do believe that creating things and making art helps you to have a more open mind, because it gives you a different way of looking at things. And I think the more, I don't know, different sort of ways you can see the world, the more you're going to be open, even if you're looking at something totally different. Like, honestly, I think drawing has made me more open-minded to all kinds of things, not just to like, oh, let me look at different art or something. There's just something about it. I feel like this conversation is a little more all over the place than I had intended, but I think one thing I didn't realize maybe was how much when I'm drawing, even when I'm just like copying what I've already drawn, that I actually have to think. And maybe something I'll consider another time is like doing the drawing and then doing a voiceover separately, so that I can like you can hear my voice. I'm like, so that, because I'm focusing on what I'm doing. Anyway, this is going to be very long. But the point of open-mindedness, again, is when you're creating things, you're seeing things differently. And it's not going to happen like all at once, but I do think that over time, it changes the way you see the world, and that will impact how much empathy you have for other people, how much empathy and understanding you have for yourself, which is so important. So, yeah, I think here's an example. I see colors completely differently now, and I'll go outside and like, I don't even use like a lot of colors in my work. I mean, I do, it's colorful, but if you pay attention, you'll notice a lot of the colors, and you'll see when we get to the coloring part, a lot of them are, you know, what I use all the time, because I have like certain colors that I like, and sort of a vibe. So I think, but the point is that when I go outside, for example, and I'm looking at grass, which I didn't even realize I was going to be talking about this point while doing this, but I'm looking at grass and I see all different colors. Like, it used to be like, oh, grass is green, obviously. Now it's like, oh, that grass is like kind of blue, or that one's like yellowish green. There's probably like more artistic people who know like more colors, but I just sort of think of the shades or whatever. Or like I've noticed recently, something I'd never noticed before is how different the colors of things outside look at night versus, or like in the evening versus during the day. Like, obviously it's the same grass, but it's a totally different shade, and that's kind of cool. Like, or even like I was looking at Barkley the other day, and she looked like a totally different color at night outside than during the day, which is like so obvious, but it's something that I never really would have thought of before. Or so it really does help to expand your mind in new ways. And you might be thinking like, I don't need to see like 50 shades of green or whatever. Like, I don't care. But I think that this is just an example of how it, why did I hit the eraser? Of how art can change the way you see the world. Like, seeing colors is just one example of how it's happened for me, but it does something to you. And I think it's so hard to kind of explain if you don't do it. And I think I'm feeling this like weird sense of frustration that like I feel like almost like I found some sort of like really cool experience, and obviously other people do it too, but I feel like too many people don't think they can do it or should do it, because they're quote unquote not creative. And it's frustrating because I really feel like so many people could get something out of doing more creative things. And I think one of the things it also does is when you open your mind, you kind of have the tendency to get rid of some assumptions that you might have had before. And that can be such a positive thing. It just allows us to also see ourselves in a new way. And that's also one of the greatest sort of benefits I've found in terms of, becoming more creative and exploring more aspects of creativity. It gives you a different perspective on yourself. Like, I have always thought of myself as like, I'm a writer and that's what I am. And I still like when people say, oh, what do you do? Like, that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. When in actuality, like, I spend way more time drawing than I do writing. And I wouldn't say that I'm not a writer, because I still am, but I think this has shown me, and I think it would do the same for you if you did it, that like you can be a lot of different things. And you can explore sort of different aspects of yourself, when you allow yourself to be creative, and it doesn't have to stay limited to the art you do. The fact that you allow yourself to try something different, to kind of get out of your comfort zone, that will translate into other aspects of your life, whether it's relationships or, your work experiences or whatever. I mean, I think, that understanding that you are a complex person, as we all are, is one of the sort of open-mindedness benefits, I think, of creativity. And, seeing that you are a multifaceted person and that you have skills and talents that you probably don't think you have right now, it will change you. It will change you for the better, I think. And it will also be a great way for you to remember that other people are multifaceted as well. And they, just like you, have all kinds of skills and, abilities that aren't always right there on the surface. So it really is worth giving it a try and opening your mind to the possibility of doing something creative. Clearly, the more uh-oh, there's dogs barking. Let's see how Barkley does. Hopefully she's doing good so far. So yeah. What else would I like to talk about? Oh, another thing that I think can happen in terms of creativity and this sort of open-mindedness benefit is that after you've created something, you can kind of look at it and say, kind of reflect on what you do and don't like about it. Not that I would advise being like hypercritical of yourself. I tend to just sort of make things and then put it out there in the world, and then I'm like, that's it. But I do think that there's something to be said about kind of going back and reflecting on what you do or don't like about a certain, thing that you created. Kind of like, how you might do in like a relationship or something. Like, you would go back, I don't like any of those things. See, there we go. So I'm realizing I don't like that. So I can learn a thing or two about myself there. Just don't want to be too detailed. Okay, so let's see what else we got. Okay, so one of the other really good benefits that I've experienced recently is I honestly think that art is so healing. I mean, there's obviously, people that, teach like art healing classes and stuff like this. Is not news that art can be healing, but I've personally found it to be true, and there's something about when you experience something for yourself, even if you've heard, oh, art can be so healing. When you experience it personally, it kind of feels different. So I think that art can help you. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do here, I haven't done any colors yet, but I am going to do a color here because it's just going to be better if I do it now as opposed, opposed to later, because I want to do all these little green guys. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Okay, so art helps us to sort of get in touch with ourselves, which can be really healing. Uh-oh, we got a crazy Barkley coming. A crazy Barkley coming. I found that, first of all, it kind of gets you out of your head. It gets you to sort of be in the moment, and I'll talk a little bit more about the mindfulness stuff later, but I think one of the benefits that I've really found is that it'll allow things to come to the surface that you kind of didn't know were there, which might sound like you're like, oh, I don't want that. But honestly, bearing emotions is never a good idea. Tempting, and I love to try it sometimes, but they always come out, and then it's worse. So art and creating things sort of helps us connect with our inner lives, kind of gives us a chance to give attention to things that we might not have even knew that needed attention. And I think that can be really, really beneficial because you're giving yourself a chance to sort of sit down, do something. And I think this is one of the things I love so much about art is that I'm really not great at meditating. I know that's like so bad and that I just am not doing it right, blah, blah, blah. I know. Someday I'll get into it probably. I hope, because I do think there are tons of benefits to it. But right now, I struggle with it. One of the reasons I do, and I think a lot of people do, is that it feels like you're doing nothing. It's like we all have a million things to do, that we want to do, that we should be doing, and doing something like meditating, it's just like, who has time to sit there and do nothing? Even though logically we know, science has proven, blah, 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 all the benefits, it's hard. It's very hard to do nothing for some people. I'm very good at doing nothing, but it's always like a productive nothing, I guess. I don't know if it's productive. It's rationalized as productive, like spending hours looking at images on Pinterest of butterflies, like that. I'm like, oh, well, that's research. Really, it's not. I don't know why this is not looking. I kind of feel like I need it to be more of a circle. No, that's not right either. Well, my research is not paying off, I guess. So anyway, I'm very good at doing like those types of things where it's like kind of an unwinding exercise, but it's also like you're not really being present. So anyway, I feel like doing art is a form of meditation in that way, in terms of like, I'm not really doing anything, but I am. but I'm also like thinking and sort of feeling, and I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but I feel like it's a good form of mindfulness for people who struggle with meditating. And there's something also about the way your emotions and feelings can kind of come through um, um, through a creative thing like this rather than just through talking about your feelings, although I do feel like talking about your feelings is very important. So I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to flatten it, and I'm going to color it in. So like I said, if you guys want more info on the actual art stuff and what I'm doing, let me know. And I can do more on that. But another thing that I've found really useful when it comes to the sort of healing aspect of creativity is that we all sort of have this inner critic. Let me turn this guy off, I think. We have this inner critic inside. You've probably heard your inner critic before. And you're not alone in that. I think we all have that. But when you take the time to make something, even if it comes out not that great or whatever, it's almost like a challenge to that critic, saying, you know what, I can do things. Might not turn out perfectly, but I can do them. And also things often turn out better than you would think when it comes to that kind of thing. Because like I said, it really is like practice. No, nobody wants to hear that. It's like, I just want to be able to do this exact thing. Like, I want the shortcut. But when it comes to like the creating stuff, actually the shortcut is not that fun because I don't know, it's the actual doing it, the coming up with the ideas and that at least for me is the good part. I mean, seeing the final thing is cool, but sometimes I feel like sad when I'm done a drawing because and then it's done. All right, for the nest, I think a different kind of brown. Kind of hate the two browns are on this side of the drawing, but honestly, what can you do? I could move things around, which I do sometimes later, but that didn't work because it needs to be on like a totally different layer. So yes, yeah, it would probably be easier for me to talk about drawing than other things, but this is something I've really been wanting to talk about a lot. And I kind of hesitate because I'm like, I'm not an art instructor. You know, people don't follow me for that. But I think that creativity is more than just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Probably should have prepared better for this with my explanations, but I just think it's like I want people to just try things and see what they think because I think they'll surprise themselves and learn things about themselves. I mean, just the act of trying things anyway is, useful, I find, even if you suck at it, because then you tried it and that teaches you something about yourself. You don't always know what, but sometimes it makes sense later. And I think just by like picking up a pencil, drawing something, you're kind of saying, I'm willing to explore a side of myself that I maybe don't all the time. And if you do make art all the time and you're like an artist or something, I say try something different. Get different. I don't know. maybe different medium, or different style or something. Just doing new things can be helpful. I also found that in terms of sort of the self-knowledge and stuff when it comes to creativity, it's a really cool idea and very helpful. Oh, we need some more brown. To focus on what you're drawn to creating. I'm going to put it down here. Because I don't know, I think I can tell you something about yourself. And oh, this is an interesting color. It's like a brownish grayish color. I don't know if I like it, but we'll see. I'm trying to make it a little bit different from, because I didn't realize I was going to have so much brown. Brown's not really an earth tone kind of person, but that's okay. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. This is the most rambly. Pay attention to what you're drawn to creating. Like, for example, I tend to draw a lot of sky, tend to draw a lot of sun, moon, stars, rainbows. Oops. Yeah, and one time I made a list of like all the things I draw, and it was like stars, clouds, sun, moon. Why is it not doing that? It's very strange. Oh, maybe it's way down. There we go. So it's like all this stuff like that, and I was like, oh my god, this sounds like, I don't know, kind of childish or something. Like kids draw like sun and moon and stars, and because they don't know how to draw anything else. Why? Why are you not filling? Okay, there. And when I was reflecting on that, I was thinking, oh, like I like to draw all these like silly childish things, but then I realized there's sort of a connection between all these things. I mean, almost all of them are up. I draw a lot of trees and stuff too. That's something that's up. Something you look up to see, like the sky, the stars. They're also a lot of the things I draw, like clouds, rainbows, and stuff. They're not things you can touch. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm not going to psychoanalyze myself here right now, but I just think that paying attention to the things that you like to create, no matter what they are, is interesting and can give you insights into yourself that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. And I think that's very useful. I really don't know why it doesn't want to do that. It's very strange. Hello? Hello? Why are you not doing it? It's supposed to, see, it's supposed to fill. Okay, maybe because the color drop threshold was down too low. Okay. So let's see. I also feel like, let's talk about the mindfulness thing, which I kind of already talked about a little bit, but I find that when you get in, like, it's called like the flow, when you're like, and you can get in this without art, but like, it's being really finicky. I wonder if it has something to do with the recording, because I never have this trouble. There we go. Needed to be quiet to think about it. So you get into this flow, and that's like when you are so into doing something. You've probably experienced this before, that you are just so focused and you can't even, like, it's kind of like I'm having trouble talking right now, because this is so weird. Hello, why are you not doing it? Okay. It's just normally supposed to like drag and fill. But it's not doing it. Also, when you're drawing, you have to do some problem solving. If I pull it out. I wonder if it has something to do with this layer. Let me try it over here. No, this is very strange. Maybe I need to be up close and personal. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's probably the color. Whoa, whoa. Okay. This is gonna be the weirdest video. Anyway, we sort of talked about like the noticing things, paying attention to the grass and stuff like that. I think that is like a weird kind of meditative thing that gets you, you know, thinking differently, and paying attention to the world, not just when you're actually drawing, but like when you're not at home and with your art supplies, you still kind of are more mindful in a way, or at least I feel that I am. And it's kind of a cool thing to be more aware of what's going on. I love to like, I don't know, pay more attention to the world. I think it's cool, and it happens, I find, when I'm creating things, I'm more drawn to noticing. What in the world? This is very strange. Of course, there's like never any problems until I'm doing it in front of everybody. Also, like I was saying about the flow thing, you kind of get in the zone and you're doing something. I mean, it's kind of like meditation. Like you're not, honestly, a lot of the times I'm not thinking. Not like in a bad way, but like in a good way. I'm like paying attention to what I'm doing, and I think that it's not only relaxing, but I think it's healthy to do that sometimes, and not always be focusing so much. I mean, what is that happening here? What is the haps? I almost said. Is that something people used to say? All right, seems like closer is better. Let's try that. So yeah, I think that it really is sort of a mindfulness thing. It's like how all those coloring books got really popular. I don't even know if they're still popular, but the idea of sort of just kind of zoning out with something creative can really can also be really frustrating. I really don't know why that is being that way. Why are you being that way? I also think that there's something very tangible about it. And I think so much of our world is so digital now, which isn't a bad thing. All of this, obviously, I'm doing digitally, but there is something about holding the pen or pencil or whatever you're doing in your hand, and, you know, making something that a lot of people don't do, unless you're like really into maybe cooking or something, where you're making something all the time, or obviously depending on your job. But I think a lot of people don't make things, and this is like a great way to do it. Sort of trying to decide what I want to do with this rainbow here. It's a great way to actually make something in an age when a lot of us don't make things. And you sort of get that. It's like a cool satisfaction from having created something, even if you don't do anything with it, even if, you know, it's just a quick little sketch or something. Like the actual act of taking something that was an idea in your head and just putting it on to paper or, you know, whatever medium you're going to use. I think it's just really cool. And there's something about it that you don't get from a lot of other things. And so I highly recommend trying it. And I'm going to do some of this brown and do a little bit sparkle, maybe some spots. Do these eggs have spots? I don't know. It's the thing. You don't know what your imagination is going to do. Pretty sure I've seen spots like this on eggs before, so it's probably right. Barkley is starting to get wild, which is getting me nervous because I've been moving along nicely. So now I'm thinking about this butterfly and what I want to do. I think I want to do regular orange. Barkley, I'm busy right now. So let's see. Oh, I forgot about this weird thing. Like really close. Like, no. Barks, I can't right now. Can't right now. So I don't know if you can hear her. She's crying because she wants to play ball. Anyway, I find that maybe my descriptions of how beneficial creativity and art can be maybe not the best right now, because I didn't realize how much of a challenge it would be to talk and draw, and I thought that if I already had it drawn, that I wouldn't have any. Oh my gosh, this is making me feel crazy. Why will you not drop in there? Barkley, stop. Merge these down. Come here, sweets. I'm so frustrated. This never happens. Maybe I'll try it on this layer again. It's just not color dropping anywhere. Anyway, the whole point is I want you to draw something because it's really, really beneficial. And I know part of you, it's like, I don't want to draw. I don't like drawing. I know you might think that, but I promise if you do something like, and it doesn't have to be drawing, like I said, something creative. Do something creative every day, and honestly, it will change your life. It will, and for the better. It will help you better understanding of yourself, help you have a better understanding of other people. Just adding some little details here. And I want you to do it because, can you guys hear Barkley? Barkley, you sound so sad. And also I want to hear what you think of this video. Obviously, if I had, you know, a better focus, like if I just did this, I feel like that guy doesn't look connected. I'm going to merge all of these down, which, oops, button is like never a good idea if you are doing art because you want them to be on different layers, but I don't care. Make my own rules. I want to hear what you think about this type of video, not maybe this specific one because I haven't done like an excellent job, I would say, of stop it, Barkley. Come. Stop. I'm doing a video. Don't get a Morkie. That's my advice. Add that advice to this video. Just kidding. She's cute, but she's annoying. So yeah, I like the concept is what I'm saying of like sort of talking through different topics while drawing, because I know some people like to see the drawing, but I also feel like it's not really, I'm not like an expert artist in terms of like, should I be giving drawing lessons? You know what I mean? So I feel like I should talk about the things that I know about. And the main point of this is how, oops, beneficial creativity can be to your life. And also doing it regularly. Because if you do something one time, you're going to be like, I'm not good at it, or I didn't really like it, or whatever. But honestly, I truly, truly believe that every single person can get something out of being creative every single day. And it'll just give you, it's just, first of all, it's like a little break for yourself to do things. I swear to goodness, if this doesn't, oh, it did. Can't see it because it's white. It gives you like a little break from like the way we typically are thinking. I mean, obviously all this is very generalized into like kind of what I generally think people are doing, and also what I'm generally doing, which is usually a lot of worrying and sort of dwelling on things that are not necessarily useful to dwell on. So I feel like it kind of takes me out of my mind. It gives me a chance to sort of think about things differently, to just kind of relax. Yeah, I find it really relaxing. And like I said, there's just something about making something that is really cool. There's the Barkley getting crazy. It's just a cool thing to do, to make things. It feels good. It feels like you're doing something, but you're also like relaxing. I don't know, at this point I'm just babbling on about stuff. But I hope that you won't take the babbling as a sign that it's not worth trying. You just experiment. And I also think, I didn't talk about it a ton. Well, I did, but I want to talk about it even more. It's like the connection between the open-mindedness and the creating things. It's so, so important. Should I make some of these leaves darker? Barkley, stop. So Barkley has this ball, and if you follow her on Instagram, Barkley the Morkie, you probably, gosh, why this filling situation? I feel like it must weirdly have to do with the recording. I mean, that makes no sense, but I never have any trouble filling things, and for some reason it's not liking it today. So anyway, I think if you've seen Barkley, back to my point, do you see how my mind works? It's all over the place. She has this blue ball that she always has, and it's in like almost all of her pictures, but it's about to break, and she chews on it all the time, so I have to tell her not to, which is not an interesting story. I'm not sure why I told it to you. I guess in case you're wondering what I was telling her not to do, but anybody who has a dog knows that they're just doing annoying things all the time. I'm not really sure if I'm liking this tree. Something about it. It's just not, I don't know, it's not feeling right to me, but that is the best thing about digital art like this, is that it's so easy to change things. Come on. Why is this happening? There we go. Okay. So let me play around with this tree. Also, I don't think I explained why I was drawing this in the first place. I hate spring. Like, I know that's a terrible thing to say. Everyone loves it. It's so great. But honestly, it just and the longer it goes on, like when it first started this year, I was like, all right, like I'm gonna try to have a positive attitude and I'm gonna, try to embrace spring and not be negative. Because, like when you say that you hate something, it's like you start to like really believe it and kind of gets more in your head. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna be like more optimistic about spring. And I drew this little thing, with all these little things about spring in it, and I'm still like really struggling. I do not like it. It's been driving me crazy. Oops. And so I was like thinking about, I knew I wanted to do this idea where I kind of talked about creativity a little bit and did a drawing because that's what I do all the time. And I'm like, why not share it? And I decided to draw this as another sort of attempt for myself to think about the good things of spring. I'm still struggling with it. It sounds so silly,